I think your experiences are real and you are actually experiencing a spiritual gift. I don't want to invalidate you though. I don't think you're invalidating me because you also commented that you yourself have had both traditional psychosis and spiritual experiences and that they're very different from each other. So I see that you're just coming from a place of lived experience and you're relating with me. Psychosis and spirituality can seem really similar, and I know for me, in my psychotic episodes, I tend to feel very spiritual, and some of the things that happen as a product of my mind might to anyone else look like a spiritual awakening. I do think there are a couple reasons though why my experiences weren't necessarily like being spiritually gifted, but actually just having psychosis. The first reason that I believe that I just have psychotic episodes and not spiritual awakenings is because when I go on medications, those spiritual experiences that are happening to me all the time just completely stop and they've never come back. So that leads me to think that these are really products of what my brain chemistry is doing to my mind. The second reason is because of the spiritual path I'm on now. Since coming out of psychosis, I've joined a spiritual program and I have been actively working on my spirituality since then. I have had a spiritual experience and it was not at all anything like what I thought it would be. Over time, I had a psychic change and my beliefs and outlook on life, my relationships with myself and others all shifted, and I was able to let go of a lot of the things that were holding me back. It wasn't sudden or grandiose or metaphysical. It was basically just me aligning with my spiritual beliefs and living them out in every aspect of my life. So a lot more subtle, a lot of just changing the way I live and think, and by all appearances really just looks like day-to-day lifestyle changes. I know that spiritual experiences are different for everyone all across the board, just like psychotic experiences are, and no two experience is the same. I understand there are people who have way grander spiritual experiences than mine, and mine is rather subtle, just like my psychotic episodes are really big and grand and may look a little more spiritual than they are. So those are just my beliefs, and you're welcome to have your own. I appreciate questions like this because spirituality is something that I would like to touch more on. So thanks for the question. Are you aware that you are psychotic when it comes? Nope, absolutely not me. I know there are people who are aware of it, but I mean, over the years, most of my episodes have been like completely unaware, and I've had people try to tell me what was up and I just couldn't believe it for whatever reason. Like my sister actually moved to my state to be my caregiver, and she was very patient and gentle with me, and she would say things like, no, it's okay, it's all in your head, you're psychotic. And I'd go, I'm psychotic. And I would try so hard to believe her because I desperately wanted to believe her because it would be better than whatever hell I was going through. But there'd be a part of me that would say, you know, the paranoia would kick in, she's lying to you, or the delusion that I'm a god, you know, I know more than her. Whatever it may be, you could tell me and I'd have no idea. So here's a little fun fact about me. I am a triplet, and I have a fraternal twin brother and an identical twin sister. And when I refer to them individually, I call them my twins, but collectively we are a set of triplets. So basically my brother and I don't really look alike because we have different chromosomes. Obviously, that's a major difference. My sister and I have identical DNA, however, so we look exactly alike. And as a person with schizoaffective disorder, at times that can be really jarring. If you're on the psychotic spectrum and you also have an identical twin or a fraternal twin that resembles you a great deal, you probably can understand what I mean by jarring, because it is almost like having a clone of yourself or an android that looks just like you, or any number of things, and you're looking right at yourself. It's weird. During one of my psychotic episodes, I hadn't seen my sister in a really long time. I lived in a different state than her, and while I was going into the depths of it, she and my mom talked about her moving out here to take care of me. And so when I finally saw her again after months, I was in the hospital and she came in as a visitor, and I was just looking directly at myself. Very freaky. Twins are freaky. I see that now. Just blew my mind. I had a lot of delusions related to my sister. I think some of them are very self-explanatory. Like I said, the clone thing, because clones have identical DNA. But there was one very elaborate delusion I had that was like interdimensional, and it was in this place I called the mirror dimension, which basically was an invisible like barrier on top of this dimension made up of shards of mirror, and everybody had a reflection, and their reflection worked behind the scenes to do like nefarious things, and I was trapped in the mirror dimension and I couldn't get out. But because my sister came into the hospital, I was technically able to use her reflection to get out, and then she would trade spaces with me and pretend she was me, and it made sense then and it makes no sense now. But like things like the mirror dimension continued to play out even when she was gone. I just think that one was crafted around seeing a reflection of myself in person. My relationships with people tend to change a lot when I'm psychotic, and they can change moment to moment or day to day. And one day I might think a person is evil, and then the next I'll think they're my savior. But what I think was unique about my relationship with my sister is that it was like a fixed relationship where, because I was directly looking at myself, I had a level of trust with her that I didn't have with anyone else. She was the only person that could get through to me, and my perception of her being this good savior person in my life never really wavered. I'm really grateful for that because it was horrifying, but she absolutely got me through. A lot of people think that dissociative identity disorder and schizophrenia are the same thing, and they're actually not. And there are a few reasons for how these two disorders are very different from each other. First of all, dissociative identity disorder is caused by severe trauma. It also is made up of like multiple alters, very real people sharing a body, and like schizophrenia and schizoaffective are genetic, and they are made up of hallucinations and delusions, which to anyone else do not appear real. So those are some very real differences. And now I'm going to basically throw all that out the window, basically tell you all about how I thought I had DID based on my delusions in Psychosis. Total disclaimer, I don't have DID. I absolutely do not have it. I have a lot of respect for people who do have it because it sounds debilitating. But me personally, I have delusions of being other people. Not the same as having alters, more like just adopting characters and jumping into the shoes of different people from time to time. So I had maybe a dozen or more different like characters that I would go between, and I would completely believe that I was these people. And some of the people I thought I were Jesus, a mermaid girl who couldn't speak because she was underwater, a 3-year-old, a woman named Claudia because she lived in the clouds. I was a dog. I was an alien. I was a dead person. I was a monk who was being, what's the word, like emulsified, like, yeah. I was a lot of different things. I was Aaron Ralston, the guy from the Slot Canyon in Utah. I was Hitler, as well as Anne Frank, and yeah, it got confusing. I would be going between these multiple characters every day throughout the day, and it would be really like sudden changes where I'd say I was the mermaid girl and I wasn't talking, and all I knew in sign language at the time was spaghetti, so I just said spaghetti a lot. And then all of a sudden I would be angry and storming around, and I was Claudia. Sometimes it was interspersed by blackouts, and I would come to and things would be like moved around, or I'd be wearing something different and I wouldn't have any idea how that happened. I looked into it and I couldn't find a link between DID and schizophrenia, but I was convinced that I had it. It was so realistic. After having been out of psychosis for quite some time and really reflecting back and processing the things that happened, I've come to, I guess, understand more about those delusions. And first of all, I did realize, oh, these are delusions. A delusion is a fixed belief about something that isn't real. And that was absolutely what that was, because I believed I was these people. Ultimately, though, like, the major difference was I didn't have like an inner world. These people weren't full fleshed out people with like preferences. They were very much like characters. Like, they were like a character in a play. They weren't an entire person, an entire identity. They were just the forefront, like what you would see when you'd think of Anne Frank or Hitler, without the emotions and thoughts of Hitler or Anne Frank. The emotions and thoughts were typically mine and disguised as these people. So the emotion of fear. I was terrified all the time. So if I was Aaron Ralston, what am I scared of? Obviously, I'm scared of being stuck in a slot canyon. That wasn't real. I wasn't in a slot canyon. I thought I was, but you know, that was just fear motivating my instincts and feelings. Another huge indicator that I don't have DID is, again, I've said it before with the spiritual beliefs, it ended when I got on meds. Like, everything that could be easily explained as a different disorder or spiritual awakening, when you look at the fact that they all ended when I got on meds, it's pretty clear that it was a delusion, it was psychosis, it was my brain chemistry, it was not at all a very severe, debilitating disorder born out of childhood trauma. So I do have a lot of respect for people with DID, because that's gotta be exhausting, switching between people and having blackouts all the time. I don't know how you can live like that. I completely have respect for that, because from the very simulated version of what happened to me, the very watered down experience of going between different people, like, it was scary, it was confusing, I never knew what was happening, and it just made me respect that community a whole lot more. So I'm not gonna say that I can at all relate to DID. I know that's something that I will never come close to experiencing, but I can say that, you know, just imagining what that would be like was enough for me to think, yeah, that's real. That's absolutely valid. That disorder absolutely deserves respect. I appreciate that you're trying to help. I really do. But I'm trying to stay away from delusional thinking. If I were psychotic and you said this to me, it would probably play into my delusions, which are not real. You know, the idea that life is a delusion, reality is a delusion, is a fair belief, but when I'm in delusions, it's not real, and it would probably exacerbate that. I'm not trying to say that your belief is wrong. I don't think it's wrong. Actually, it's your belief, and I think it's fair to believe in what you believe in. I just happen to have different beliefs, and I think I'll stick to mine. How can you have PTSD from something that never really happened? How could something that wasn't real possibly give you trauma? Here's the thing. To anyone around me, when I'm psychotic, the people I'm speaking to, they don't hear that. The visions I'm seeing, they don't see that. But what I'm hearing and seeing is 100% real to me. It may be all in my head, but that reality is my reality at that time. And it is as real as breathing to me. There is nothing you can say to me that will stop me from believing what I'm in. So some of the delusions I've had are experiences that I've emotionally felt, whether it physically happened. I have had the feelings associated with what that would be like. So on some level, I kind of know what that's like. For instance, I tend to have delusions that I'm pregnant, and I can feel what that bond is like with an unborn child. Like, I have believed it so strongly that I really did build a relationship with something that wasn't there. So what happens when the delusions and hallucinations are terrifying? You suffer. You have to live through that. You have to fully experience the reality to you of what is happening. So the trauma that I've had comes from things that aren't even possible. Things like being tortured in hell for eternity and being essayed by the devil. And some of them I can't speak about because they're so horrible, but they have such lasting effects that things like even going to the bathroom are hard for me. One of my more persistent delusions has to do with one of my tattoos. I have a Hellraiser tattoo. It's the Lament configuration box that opens a portal to hell that allows the Cenobites to come in and torture you. And it's very hard to live with like a physical portal to hell on your body when you believe that that's real. And I've gone to such lengths as trying to have like a spiritual surgery to like pull all of the demons out of my leg. Ridiculous things. At one point, I literally took a saw and was going to, yeah. So you can't tell me that didn't happen. You can't tell me I didn't almost do that. The worst part, maybe not, but one of the worst parts is that I used to love horror films. And I even took a class in college about the history of horror. I was so obsessed with it. I watched everything I could. My friends called me the gore queen, and my reputation was for watching the most unwatchable things that everyone else would say no to. Like way up there things that were borderline snuff films. So what do you think my delusions were at that time? Those movies, like I was in those movies. These scenes in those movies happened to me. Hallucinations of seeing that gore and the delusion of it happening to me. And I can't even watch kids shows now. It's been 2 years since my last episode, and this stuff still comes up pretty much every day, and I am triggered by almost everything. I am triggered by music, foods, certain articles of clothing, certain cleaning supplies. Everything scares me. I can't come back from it. Be gentle with your loved ones who have psychosis. Unless it's happened to you, you have no idea what it's like.